Hi friends. I think Dog is here. So
Okay.
Dog, once you're ready, feel free to kick us off. Thank you. Thank you everyone for waiting.
Thank you, Jem. Doug, would you care to start? Can you hear us, Doug?
Hey Doug, Cesar here. I think your audio is not connected. Probably something with the Bluetooth in the car.
Not yet.
We can hear you, Dog. I believe Dog is speaking, but you can't hear
Yeah,
him.
we cannot hear you.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Mila. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear
Oh,
you now.
oh, that's good. Hey, Franz, how are you? Good to see you.
Likewise, thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Looking forward to the conversation.
That's excellent. Doug, would you like to start with a brief overview for over the global chamber itself, also for the participants outside of the community?
Sure. Are we recording?
We are indeed.
Okay. Very good. Well, sorry that I'm coming in a few minutes late. Thank you for your patience. I am Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. And today I got to drive my grandson to school. Usually I pick him up, but today I had to drop him off, and dropping him off is harder than picking him up because he very exciting to get out of the house. My poor daughter, in terms of what she goes through every day. It reminds me of global business as well, and the chaos that we're talking about today in terms of navigating for our businesses. There's a lot going on, and so how do we find a way to balance? How do we find a way to maneuver through? And one of the things that we care about and that we're focused in on at Global Chamber is to be everywhere, to provide an infinite number of opportunities to our members, and to simplify. And so that all sounds like it's impossible. And some days it feels like it is because there's just so much going on. But our goal with 605 chapters is to be everywhere and to know everybody. And at the end of the day, make the right connections for clients and information and partners. And today at this event, we are sharing information from experts who are going to be giving you tips and techniques to be able to maneuver through all of this, all these opportunities, through all of the challenges to be able to be more successful. So, Franz, thank you so much for putting this program together. I've been watching you do this over the past weeks, and your level of preparation, your pulling this all together has been just spectacular. And so I'm looking forward to learning a lot myself. I think everybody here will be learning a lot and also making some great connections. And if you're watching this recording, enjoy. watch the rest of it. And if you have any challenges in connecting with anyone that you would like to speak with who are speaking today, please send an email to info@globalchamber.org and we'll be happy to help. Similarly, for all of you here today, please feel free to share your information in the chat area. Ask questions in the chat, or there will be time later in the program to be able to raise your hand and ask questions as well. And so, Franz, thanks again. I turn the program over to you.
Thank you, Doug. Greatly appreciate it. It's an honor to have this panel discussion within the community. Couple of points of housekeeping. We are recording this session. We will post it later, and you can also request it later. We will start off with brief introductions of all the panelists, aided by a couple of slides. On the slides, you will see contact information as well, which we will share after this presentation as well, so that you can follow up with panelists as you see fit or as you need. Thank you all for joining. Greatly appreciate it. Looking forward to a fun conversation. The focus area really is on how do you keep or light fire in production teams. Particularly these days, that is quite challenging because of the continuous changes in technology. But also the changes in market conditions and in the changes in globalization or the trends in globalization, but also just in productivity itself. So how do you, as an organization, incorporate continuous change, foster it, use it to your advantage, and keep your teams both motivated, engaged, and in charge? To that point, we will start with the introductions. I'll start off with introducing myself. I'm a managing partner and founder of Amplify Now. We are a multinational business development organization. We help startups and scale-ups enter new market segments, whether those are vertical or geographical, helping companies enter new market spaces, finding new corner customers, understanding how customers purchase your products and services, and what the perfect or the real optimal fit for that is on distribution. I'm passing it over directly to Bastiaan, which is a lot more interesting. And with that, Bastiaan.
Thank you, Frans. So hello, everybody. My name is Bastiaan van Amersveld. I'm residing in the Netherlands, Amsterdam. I'm full stack CEO of LESS. And for people who are not aware, LESS is an organizational design system for product development aimed at maximizing and organizing adaptiveness for your organization. So it means that you have the ability to change direction relatively at low cost. You have discovery through frequent delivery, and basically you're maximizing the value delivered to your customers. I've been doing similar things even before I knew LESS for over 20 years at various hardware and software product companies. And since 2 years, I'm helping a lot of organizations and over 100K global community of LESS to actually do that. So there are a lot of coaches and trainers around the world. So it's absolutely not me who's doing all the good work. So in a nutshell, that's me.
Fantastic, excellent. Gabrielle, would you like to take this opportunity to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, thank you. I am Gabriel Uribe. I'm from Mexico City. And for the last 20 years, I have been working with leaderships, with leader and small and big companies to expand their impact without losing their peace of mind. And the last couple of years, we have implemented in several companies the combination of conscious leadership and agility frameworks to increase their productivity without the stress. So that's me, and I love to be in this panel to rise up the productivity and how in a global scale people can actually have more impact without, as Doug said, without losing the balance on their personal life and business life. That's me.
Fantastic, excellent, thank you. And Pablo?
Thank you very much, Franz. Hello, everybody. My name is Pablo Quevedo. I'm COO with Raising Up with Gabriel Uribe. We both work in the same company, and I'm very happy to be his partner, also his partner, because several years ago I started my first company, a software development company, and I found that the agile frameworks are not enough to get a team to hold all the pressure that we love to do with doing a product or a software development. So I found that when we match our purpose and our consciousness with the agile frameworks, we can do something very interesting and a very powerful thing. So here I am. I want to discuss. I'm very excited to discuss all these kind of issues that rise with the agility and with all the other panelists. And thank you very much for joining us.
Excellent. Thank you, Pablo. Sean,
Hello,
the
everybody.
floor is
Sorry, a little bit late. My name is Sean Hall, longtime lurker / member here on the Global Chamber. And this time I get a chance to actually talk because Franz invited me. So anyway, I have been a transformation consultant for a very long time, primarily in the insurance domain. But not only working with insurance companies, but also software vendors and operational vendors, et cetera. So in transformation for me usually means one of three things. It's either operational change, go-to-market change, or technology change. A lot of times those three can be packed together. And my thing is when I'm talking change, I'm talking about big change, so global or truly transformational change. So I've lived through a lot when it comes to change.
excellent. Good. Thank you all for your introduction. Greatly appreciated. As the audience probably will have caught up, transformation, change, and productivity are all elements of an organization. Often enough, they sound like they fit larger organizations. However, they affect startups, scale-ups, and small medium businesses as well. And it is just as important for a small company to develop products and services and to go through change effectively as it is for a large organization. So I would like to kick off this panel discussion, this interactive panel discussion, with a question to Bastiaan.
All right. That's a very interesting question, Frans. So typically when you're a small organization and you would like to develop a product, you typically sit together with your customer and try to deliver a new version every few minutes, optimally. You work on the technology together and you try to solve the customer's problem. But what then happens when you start to grow, you tend to have more processes, coordination overhead, communication goes through the manager to talk to the customer. You suddenly start to become very slow at reacting on market shifts. And lots of times that's because your inability as a larger corporation to learn and adapt quickly enough. Another one which starts to happen if you grow is that innovation, which was done really well with when you were small, it's appointed to one team or two teams or department. instead of the whole organization. And the culture of your organization usually starts to become more siloed. So, and less product focused. So those are, let's say, challenges that you most often don't even notice that they start to happen. And that is something you need to solve. And if you're already large and big, you can still convert yourself back to how it was in the old days at scale. I think that's a good starter point to see how are you doing that. So Sean, what's your take on that?
No, super interesting. So what I've noticed, I had the luck or maybe unluck of working with a startup company called Hadron Insurance, but this was a bit unusual. It was created by a private equity company. They pumped a lot of money in, and they were moving very fast. And to me, it was interesting because usually the projects I work on are large change projects, right? The startup I was working with was not change. It was all new, and they were moving very fast, had little time to think about even like project management or product management or any of this stuff, right? Where compared to when I do other major projects, most of the time they involve change. So large organizations that have to change something and total different dynamics. So I do think that I think one is solving for two different use cases, if you will, but still trying to use the same frameworks or same mentality, et cetera, that you might be that might have served you well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I think what I also hear you say, and what I was building up to, organizations make it way too complex for themselves.
Yeah.
They tend to add more processes and hierarchy, where most of us, also in this call, try to make it less complex. They would like
and that's
reduce complexity.
That's a great point. I think so back to this example of a startup, they brought me in as a project manager to help them on several fronts, right? But I could tell that they did not want the complexity that comes with the usual PMO or with a product management type of framework, right? They wanted to move quick and lean. And I do agree with you. I think that building out a large PMO, as one might call it, a project management office, and a large framework to do stuff might not be helpful for organizations that are smaller or mid-sized or want to move fast.
Yeah, no, exactly. So one of the things I would like to give the audience to think about, because we have limited time, we cannot solve everything. A lot of you have a product backlog. So your development teams are working against a certain list of activities, or preferably wishes from the customer, that you want to build into your product. So the ultimate goal that you can achieve is to actually have a single product backlog, and therefore also one product owner. And that will give you a lot of benefit, including that everybody who's working on the product will have the same product vision and will work in the right priority order. So I think that
I'll simplify that even just in case there are people watching who might not be familiar with the terminology of product backlog and product. Whatever you make, whatever you sell, service, thing, whatever, having one person who is in charge of the design and what that product is I think what you're saying, right, Bastian?
Yes.
You need that one person. And, maybe if it's a super small company, maybe that's the CEO or whatever, but somebody actually has to own the design and the advancement and the evolution of that product and that person. You know, that's where the buck stops when it comes to that particular piece, right?
Excellent.
Exactly.
Gabriel, you would like to chime in? You're on mute still, unfortunately. Good. But we cannot hear you.
We can hear you, Gabriel.
Oh, in my experience here in Mexico with and with other small companies, we have seen that when they start moving these parts, one of the biggest issues it's the owner, the business owner, in my experience, doesn't have to be this product owner. So they can have more flexibility and less drive on the moving parts, or less opinion on the moving parts, because sometimes in my experience that's in small businesses this will make a stopper, because changing of perspective or changing on opinions every single weekly or monthly, and that makes a stopper on the productivity. And that's one of the biggest issues for leadership in small companies, the the possibility of letting go of the control of I am the the one who create this, or I'm the founder and I want to be involved in everything. So as Sean says, sometimes is a business owner, but sometimes this allows the company to grow because he's letting the power of these small decisions to another person. That can be the depend on the terminology, but it can be the math, uh, the product owner, or the Scrum Master, whatever methodology.
And
That's
to that point, you know, as a product owner or product manager, you are looking and watching for different things, right? The CEO, the owner, might be worried about, you know, the balance sheet, might be worried about, you know, marketing, might be the, you know, have different hats, right? Whereas the product owner, truly, they are evolving a product. And how do you do that? You listen to your customers, you look at what the competition is doing. I mean, it's truly it's its own science, if you will.
So if you are, I'm pulling this a little bit back to the small medium businesses, startups, and scale ups. You know, if you are growing an organization, you're hiring people that specialize in certain things, whether it's a developer or a product manager or a business development person or something, and they all have their own capabilities and their own specialties. And just like an executive has got their own capabilities and specialties, then how do you organize in a small medium business or a growing business or even a larger scale business? How do you make sure that everybody is speaking the same language, understanding what you are building and why, and then capture that really the voice of customer, your reason to be? And how do you make sure that everybody across an organization understands that?
Well, if I can
I,
pick that one initially up, it is again having a single focus on what your product is, and the list that everybody is working from is also just that single list. Because if you have multiple lists, as Sean explained, you have a problem, because then a lot of teams will start to become silos, and then you as the CEO or the product owner with a budget, you have a problem maintaining that, and so everything starts to dilute actually. So that's one of the biggest things. And the other thing that is really important from organizational design point of view is that the overhead that you have, and that could be managers, project managers, that is always a bottleneck for product teams. It might not seem like that in the beginning when you're really small, but the larger you become, the more islands, the more silos, the more translation errors appear, where your product teams are actually super capable of doing so much, talking with the customer, and thinking along about cool stuff that they can do, receive feedback again from the customer, all based on your vision as a product owner or CEO.
So if I understand correctly, siloization comes out of the need to organize teams and bring structure to enable people to function best in what they're set out to do. But then that siloization itself, or that organizational structure itself, then becomes an inhibitor to agility and internal communication and productivity.
Possibly. There's nothing against teams. I
Yeah.
think teams are great. But if teams are not aligned, then they will go their own way. The same for the technical excellence that you have in your organization. If that is not aligned and teams are using different ways and techniques and they are not sharing anything to each other, and they're not allowed to touch other parts of the product, even if they can potentially change things there, that is also not helping you in having the same focus. So you will only enforce your silo. But perhaps I see Pablo has his hand raised. Perhaps he wants to chip in.
Thank you, Bastian. Yes, I want just to add from something that I seem very important that you mentioned before, that is to keep it simple, but also that we need to keep it simple in a very complex world. And you mentioned that, and I completely agree, that to keep a single product backlog, but we also need to understand that the whole company is one value stream. So we don't need to we don't align only the product teams, but also the whole company teams. So we need to align the legal team, we need to align the product team, and so tech service and so on. So we need to know that what had been working very good with us is that we try to emphasize to keep all the teams talking a lot of time. They need to talk and they need to know what is doing the other team, so they are going to stop what my team is doing, right? So I think that the best way to keep the teams aligned is to have a lot of conscious and also to have a lot of good and productive talks. So that's what I want to add.
Thank you.
They need to keep speaking. Thank you very much, friends.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bastian.
So, Sean, just to build on that, what in your experience, what are the drivers for transformation? Why do organizations, small and big, want to transform?
Just to keep up, basically. I mean, the best example I have now is I mean, you read about it every day, obviously, is AI, right? Or you experience it every day. But I just read something super interesting, that in the last quarter, how many like Fortune 500 companies mention the word AI in their quarterly statements or calls or whatever. And it's everybody, literally everybody. And then it just comes down to how many times you say it, right? So, I mean, that is the driver. It's always, the drivers truly are technology like AI, I think, or growth, if you will. How do I grow, etc., right? So, operational, maybe less, maybe that is, is something that if you're so busy and you think that there are better ways to do things, that's when the operational changes come in. But primarily, I would say growth and technology like AI.
AI, okay. Excellent, good, very good. That's an interesting. I have some questions about that, but let's delve a little bit deeper into this as well. So if transformation comes out of market conditions and growth, I assume inhibitors to that are basically the status quo, how organizations operate right now, hence transformation. So question for all of the panelists. What are some of the tools and capabilities and best practices for helping organizations optimize, stay flexible, incorporate new inputs, and indeed go through change effectively?
I mean, I'll start. I do think that not to push product managers and project managers by the side, I still think that you need the people who have the experience to lead change, like product managers and project managers and the frameworks they bring. Now, you know, to take away from the overhead that Bastian was saying, you know, the project manager, like, here's a good example. When I worked for the startup, I did not talk about project management best practices. I did not push, you know, the project plan on everybody in every meeting. I used it myself because I've been doing it for over 20 years, you know, but I felt like I was more a chief of staff to the COO. And it's a good thing as a project manager because I knew how to organize things and, you know, whatever. So I do think that you need the experience of those types of people to help push transformation.
What
Yeah, so
challenges do you? Sorry, Bastian, go ahead.
well, yeah, if we want to make the round. So I like one point that Sean makes about the CEO. So what I see often happening is when organizations would like to make some transformation, that often the CEO or somebody high up in C-level is not really owning the change. And by that, I mean that person is saying, oh, that really looks like a good solution. Implement it, please. Versus saying, oh, I really like this. How shall we make the change? And what do I need to do? That sounds really silly, but it is super important. Often with finance institutes, you see that organizations have a cycle of 5 years for a new CEO. And that makes the thinking of that person really different, saying, oh, I'm leaving in 5 years anyway. So if this consultancy company addresses this problem like this, I'll just give them the assignment. And if it fails, then it's not on my hands. And that is really happening like that. And that makes it for the organization who would like to make the change very difficult to actually get the right approvals. If you have a person on top who's actually open and willing to work together on those changes and accept little changes for him or her, like for example, the dashboard items will change on what they look at every week, then you are already in a better shape making your changes all the way down.
I'll piggyback on that, just like Bastian, like we were earlier saying that, you know, maybe it's maybe it's not the CEO who is the product owner who makes decisions on products. Same thing for transformation, right? Maybe it's not the COO or whatever that has the background or the time or whatever to. So this is where the project manager types come in those frameworks, right? They don't have to talk about it. You can call them something else. You can call them a transformation consultant. In my case, I sold myself as a chief of staff, not as a project manager to the COO, no matter what you want to call it. But that's where you do want that kind of experience, I think.
Yeah, I think there it's the transformation is never the final goal. It's sometimes is the pain of the CEO or even the leadership team and says, okay, I need to get to this part, but have been working extra hours. I have my team. It's like, for example, here in Mexico, we conquer, well, we help a COO of a company that had a happy problem that it was they need to uprise their productivity, their production at 20%. So because they sent new shipment for the product base here in Guadalajara. And the biggest problem for him, or the biggest issue for him, was that his team was very loyal, and that he told me, they will do it. But the problem is that they were 80% about burnout, all the plant. So the conflict was, how do we do it without killing my people? So that's when they start thinking and rising up the transformation. And he was the the master chief of the transformation. Then we start putting it the different frameworks, but they needed to know that they wanted to transform, not because of the transformation per se, but it was because of the bottom line, that they wanted to rise up their productivity, and they didn't want to kill their people, because that was the fact. So that's, I think, is very poetic, thinking about that we will help transformation, but it's a human nature on the need of starts on the needs of the company, and then on the need of the person, and then you have to create.
Gabriel? Okay. And also, I think that transformation needs to start with a why. Why we want to transform? Why we want people to do something different, or something else? So first, I think that we need to make sure that all teams knows the why we want to transform, and then we need to provide a vision and a purpose why the transformation has to be made. So when all the teams know and knows how they were going to transform, why they are going to transform, they will know how they will do it, and with the how is when the agile frameworks come into place. So, but we can start a transformation, and we can start implementing some large scale frameworks, or low scale frameworks. We need to be sure that all the teams know why we want to do it, and they are aligned with the purpose. So that's, I think, that is the first step. Right? We need to make sure that the teams have in place before we start implementing any kind of framework.
So
Absolutely. I agree with that you need to educate people on the why. That's super crucial. One thing to add to Pablo, when you're actually starting to move towards, after educating the why, and you did probably a lot of other preparations, don't make the change too big. Start with a maximum of 50 people. And if you're able to do it, which would be really great, make a virtual organization. And by that, I mean all the new rules that are starting to happen because of this change, which might implicate that you're not talking about budgets anymore, or at least in a different way. It might be that roles change, and there's no senior developer anymore, but you are a product team member, and perhaps a senior product team. That has a lot of implication to HR. They need to do a lot of preparation work. People need to get used to it. So if you make a virtual organization and you say to whoever is leading it, hey, we're doing this, it will take us half a year, perhaps a year. If it fails, it fails, but at least it's contained within these 50 people. Often this will
And
not fail, And then you have a success story, and then you can multiply your success. So virtual teams or virtual corporations.
Yeah, exactly, Basil. And also, I think that a very good tool that we can use to make this transformation and these changes is using the OKRs. So with the reading the OKRs, we can know that we are taking place the good advance. What is the advance that we got with the transformation, and these OKRs have to be aligned with what we already said, the purpose and the vision.
Yep.
As a
Yeah.
as a two-pronged question, there was a mentioning of frameworks, and maybe it is of interest to mention a couple of frameworks that are out there to help transformation. Have a quick overview of what is good and bad, and of course, Sean, Pablo, and Gabriel, if you use any such frameworks. But then also, then the follow-up question to that is that if you are implementing frameworks or org change, how do you communicate within an organization the benefits of that? Because I can imagine that organizations or people within organizations can think that, woo, you're changing a whole lot. And that will take time and will be taking us away from productivity, which is what we want to achieve.
I certainly
Take the question, Frans.
I'll jump in. I'll say I certainly think you have to create a burning fire, right? Otherwise, if you're just going through the motions of change, especially constantly, it kind of loses its oomph, if you will, right? So somehow you have to create a burning fire to make it stick.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I would call it the organization needs some form of optimization goal, and by all means don't communicate it like that, but you need to have something that you're going for, so the burning fire. And the next thing is, do not talk about the framework that you're going to implement, because that will too many questions, too many discussions, and it will take you a year. What you need to do is actually just start implementing that framework that you wish to do, and talk about the benefits and why things are happening, and especially let people figure it out themselves. There's a technique called systems modeling, which is I can recommend to look it up, and it's really cool to sit together with 1 or 2 or 4 people and to actually at the board that to talk about a certain problem that you have. And instead of that you are providing the potential answers to the solution, they will figure it out themselves. So those are really cool techniques, relatively easy to learn, for people to actually own the change instead of that somebody else is telling them to do it like that.
Yeah, the one word that I directly connected with, and that is when you said it is really cool, which is instrumental to people to stay engaged. You know, that they're learning new things. They're making a difference, and they're part of the process. So that is cool, so to paraphrase. But let's talk about frameworks and some options that organizations utilize. Sean, in your work, and Gabriel and Pablo, of course, too. In your work, in your line of work, do you use frameworks?
Oh, yes. I mean, absolutely. Everything that I do, I use some type of project management framework. I like to layer things. I'm a very big fan of lean methodology or lean approaches. So I might incorporate lean approaches into, let's say, an agile type of framework. So as I'm doing things, again, I'll use this example of being the chief of staff to the COO for that startup in the back of my mind. And what I'm doing, on the side is keeping my project plan up to date, my change plans, my RAID log, all the things that I'm used to as a project manager, I'm doing. I'm just, like Bastian says, I'm not dwelling on that because nobody else needs to worry about those things. Everybody else needs to worry about, their piece of the pie. But I am absolutely using all the frameworks and tools, let's say, that I can.
So
And what
one of the other things that I like to mention about frameworks is you need to think really good about selecting your framework, because a lot of the frameworks, they are prescriptive in what you need to do. And that sounds really comforting. That's where certain frameworks are doing really well, because for every question they have a nice A4 paper or letter paper in the US what to do. But the problem with that is it might not fit your organization or your situation, even though it sounds really cool. But if it worked for company X, there's zero guarantee it works for you in company Y. So you need to be very careful in following everything to the letter. That's where a lot of these days agile transformations fail, because people do not read, and because they do not read, they do not understand the basic principles of what they're actually doing. So to give you the worst example ever, I spoke to a big telecom company, and they were looking for Scrum Masters. Now, Scrum Masters have a very specific task in the organization, and they're super helpful coaches. And what they wanted the Scrum Masters to do was to actually the ability to fire people in the teams. And if you think about it, that's the worst thing you can give to a coach whom people need to trust. So be very careful in how you implement something, and preferably choose a framework that is really open, that only gives you, let's say, touch points where you can experiment yourself. And if it fails, you try again. And that allows you to learn quickly, adapt quickly. And if you make that part of your whole organization slowly, you will become way more resilient as a bonus as well.
Excellent. Now, Bastiaan, straight to you, as this is an opportunity, as we are delving a little bit into the frameworks. This might be a good opportunity to mention a couple of the frameworks and what their pros are and their cons, including less.
Yeah, I don't have a super strong preference for any of the frameworks. Because of the same reason, a lot of them are prescriptive. So they might look really good. And that doesn't mean it's really bad to do it. At the LESS conference earlier last month, there was a guy who spoke for a huge postal service in Europe. And they're, I don't know exactly how big they are, 100,000 plus. Around 20K plus people are really doing product development there. It's really amazing. But they did something called SAFE. And he was super enthusiastic about it. Why? Because it allowed the organization to shape themselves. After a while, they learned that it was not really what they needed. They were hoping to go for less as a organizational design system, but that was way too difficult. So they invented their own kind of in the middle thing, And they plan to try to implement this over 5 years, and that will gradually make them more ready for less. And I think that's a really good way to utilize certain standard things that exist. You can play with that. You should not expect to make any change relatively soon, because then it will fail for sure. So even if you try something that is super prescriptive, but it keeps your organization in a certain trend, and it helps them, yeah, why not?
Good.
To
So go ahead, Gabriel.
just to piggyback on Bastian's question, also answer, why trying to adapt the culture of the company to a framework, I think that's something prescribed and it's totally going to fail sometimes because we are dealing with human beings and when we start implementing those and be adaptive to the frameworks, to the company culture, one of the things that we have seen is that when people implementing these frameworks, new way of works, when they start being aware of what's the big use, what's the big why for them it's better to implement and to be on the same page with the change, then they will adopt it easier and they will be ambassadors for the next part. The other way is like taking the, oh, you will do this framework because I say so. That's not gonna work. Like it will be a disaster for everyone. So it will. So trying to get into the awareness of the people that is they're going to start and helping them to adapt with other frameworks, with other things that they feel that it's good for them. That's the way that we seem to. It's easier, and it's more productive.
It begs the question though, or maybe it doesn't beg it, but the question does pop up then. How do organizations pick the framework to start with, if they want the framework?
I think I think that's not the job of the organization as a consultant. You give them a choice base, but you start like as we do it is we start with something very easy, depending on the maturity of the company, of the culture of the company and the implementations and what are their culture, and then we start with something very basic. But Pablo can also piggyback on that
Mo
because he's the master
yeah,
in that.
in my experience, the simplest thing that we can start is with using Scrum. We start using Scrum, and then after a while, the team found usually finds that they need something else, and then we need to move to another framework. We have been particularly successful with less, so that's one of the options. But also there are, there's Nexus or DA, Discipline Agility. There's other large scale frameworks that we can use, but uh, most of the cases we start using Scrum. That's just some experiment, we start playing with the framework, and also we will know how we are going to use or adapt that framework to a large scale. So that's our experience, and I also want to add that with using Lean and Kanban can be very useful. But I start with what I said before. We need to be clear what we want to do, and we need to be open because some people think, oh, if I use some traditional framework like waterfall, is not this is the old school, and we can do that. we need to be open that any kind of framework could be useful as long as the company and the teams understand what they need to do. So in our experience, yeah, we can use Scrum, but also their waterfall, for example, and start adopting some hybrid scheme. And so the team will adapt it and will make it their own. As Bastian told us, the teams will adapt and will create their own framework using some base like Less or Scrum or Nexus or the framework they want to adopt.
Fantastic, excellent, good, thank you. Thank you, Pablo. So we're running out of time, but there was one topic that I really did want to touch upon, which would be silly if we don't touch on it. And Sean,
Hi, Franz. I'm sorry.
Okay.
As I understand it, there's a shared link and there's another meeting that's just about to start. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have to end it there.
Okay, good, excellent.
So, but it's a good opportunity to pick this topic up again, because this is such an important topic. It's one we're all dealing with, and there's so many different solutions to this, and you guys have really done a great job in boxing some of the really important points. Really appreciate it. Would you like to make maybe some closing comments?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you, Doug, and thank you, panel. And to the audience, by all means, this is a panel of experts in regards to change management, transformation, helping companies focus on productivity. Bastian, in particular, representing Less methodology, a supreme methodology for helping organizations navigate change and productivity. A other topic that we wanted to discuss and that we should possibly find some other time for is AI, and AI in regards to productivity as a productivity tool, or is it?
The answer is yes, but what does that really mean?
That's right, qualified.
And how do we make use of it? So, but does anybody
I
else
disagree, Doc. So let's make this a topic.
Okay, who was that?
Bastian.
Bastian.
Bastian. Okay, yeah, no, I think that's a great topic. We do have a monthly AI conversation. Obviously, AI is really important. So let's follow up to have either a separate meeting of this meeting, or we weave it into the AI meeting. But I really appreciate Bastian or any of the speakers. Do you have any final closing comments? Anything you left out, or anything else that you want to finish with?
Thank you to the audience.
I have one. So if you're struggling for whatever reason with your product development, have a good look at how you're currently doing it and listen to the teams. That's a good first start.
Excellent. Thank you, panelists, and thank you, audience. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to the continuation.
Great job, everybody. Take care. Have a good day.